My name is Elena Vargas. For 15 years I have served as the lead prosecutor in major international financial crimes. Last week I closed the largest money laundering investigation in Mexico's history, recovering over $2.3 billion. But that Saturday afternoon, while I carefully placed crystal glasses on silver trays, no one in the family knew the truth. Elena, make sure the napkins are folded perfectly. My cousin Valeria Castillo called from the main hall of Residencia Castillo. The senator's guests must not see a single detail out of place. Of course, cousin, I replied, adjusting the black waitress uniform she had insisted I wear. The irony was not lost on me. The same Senator Whitaker had been under secret investigation by my office for 8 months. 3 years earlier I had chosen to step back from public view after receiving death threats for my work against organized crime. My strategy was to keep a low profile, live in a modest apartment, and handle cases from the shadows. My family believed I had lost my job and now worked as an event waitress to survive. Have you checked that the Dom Perignon is at the perfect temperature? Valeria asked, admiring her $80,000 wedding dress. This marriage will open every right social door for me. Valeria had always been the star of the family, a marketing director at a multinational company, engaged to Sebastian Harrington, son of a prominent businessman. What she did not know was that I had authorized the freezing of her future father-in-law's bank accounts the previous week. Everything is perfect, I answered, remembering the times I had dined with presidents and ambassadors while discussing extradition treaties. Now I carried trays to impress politicians I had personally investigated. Residencia Castillo was spectacular, with marble fountains in the gardens, grand halls with exposed beam ceilings, and a private 17th-century chapel. Valeria had spared no expense on the decorations. Elena, when the important guests arrive, stay in the kitchen, she ordered while supervising the table settings. We don't want the service staff mixing with high-class people. I smiled inwardly. Among the guests were 3 people I had dined with the week before at the presidential residence, the Deputy Secretary of Finance, the Spanish ambassador, and a Supreme Court justice. At 5 o'clock the guests began to arrive. Politicians, businessmen, diplomats, the entire elite Valeria had cultivated for her perfect wedding. I moved discreetly with trays of canapés, listening to conversations that would have fascinated me in my professional capacity. Have you confirmed Judge Morales will arrive early? Valeria whispered to Sebastian. We need the ceremony to start exactly at 6. Judge Robert Morales. My heart beat a little faster. We had worked together for 2 years on judicial corruption cases. He was one of the few people in the legal system I trusted completely. Elena, the champagne for the main table, Valeria shouted. And remember, head down, no familiar smiles. I carried the tray of Dom Perignon toward the VIP guests. Senator Whitaker was chatting animatedly with other politicians, unaware that his phone conversations had been legally intercepted by my team. What do you think of the new chief prosecutor? One guest asked. They say she is relentless against corruption. An exaggeration, the senator replied. Probably just another official who barks but doesn't bite. I bit my tongue. If he knew we had frozen $40 million from his Swiss accounts that morning, he would not look so relaxed. The ceremony was scheduled to begin in the chapel at 6. Guests slowly moved toward the altar while I collected empty glasses. Valeria looked radiant, unaware that her perfect wedding was about to become something very different. Judge Morales has arrived, someone announced from the entrance. Robert Morales entered in his judicial robe, tall and distinguished, greeting guests politely. I was in a corner organizing dirty glasses when our eyes met. His expression changed instantly. He stopped walking, narrowed his eyes as if he could not believe what he saw. And then a smile of recognition lit up his face. Chief Prosecutor Vargas, he exclaimed loudly, walking straight toward me. What are you doing here? I thought you were in Europe closing the major Swiss bank case. The silence that followed was absolute. Every conversation stopped. Every guest turned to look at me. Valeria, adjusting her veil near the altar, froze completely. Hello, Robert, I replied naturally, straightening my posture. I simply came to my cousin's wedding. Your cousin? Robert looked at Valeria and back at me. Chief Prosecutor, why are you dressed as a waitress? Long story, I completed with a soft smile. Senator Whitaker had turned pale. 2 businessmen I recognized from our investigation files shifted uncomfortably. The Spanish ambassador approached with a look of surprise and delight. Elena, I didn't recognize you, she said, embracing me. Justice Morales. Do you know the brightest prosecutor of this generation? Of course, Robert replied. We just closed the largest corruption case in Mexico's judicial history. Elena coordinated an international operation involving 12 countries. Valeria approached, walking unsteadily, her face a mask of confusion and horror. Elena, what are they talking about? You work serving tables? Not exactly, cousin, I answered, removing my apron. I work serving justice. The Deputy Secretary of Finance joined the group. Prosecutor Vargas. What a surprise. Are you here on duty? Don't tell me there's an active investigation. I looked meaningfully at Senator Whitaker. There are always investigations in progress. Deputy Secretary. Robert Morales addressed the guests. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed with the ceremony, I must inform you that I have pending arrest warrants for some of those present. Panic spread like ripples in water. Several guests began discreetly moving toward the exits. Wait, Valeria cried. This is my wedding. What is happening? Your cousin is the chief prosecutor of the Republic, Robert explained patiently. One of the most powerful women in the country within the judicial system. Senator Whitaker tried to leave through a side door, but 2 federal agents were already blocking all exits. They had arrived discreetly during the ceremony, just as we had planned. Senator Whitaker, I said, raising my voice, I'm afraid you won't be staying for the toast. You have an appointment at the public ministry. Valeria collapsed into a chair, her wedding dress spreading around her like a cloud. I don't understand anything. Are you really the chief prosecutor? For 15 years, I confirmed. I chose to keep a low profile for safety. I thought my family would understand. But apparently you preferred to believe I had failed in life. Sebastian, the groom, approached nervously. Elena, about my father and the frozen accounts. Ah, so you already know, I replied. Your lawyers probably contacted you this morning. Are you going to arrest my father-in-law at my wedding? Valeria asked hysterically. No, I reassured her. He will turn himself in voluntarily on Monday. Today we only came for the senator. Robert addressed the remaining guests. Given the circumstances, I suggest postponing the ceremony. No, I said firmly. Valeria has planned this wedding for months. If she wants to continue, we will continue. My cousin looked at me with tears in her eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Because every time we met you treated me like a failure. It was easier to keep my job secret than deal with your condescension. Justice Morales smiled. Proceed with the ceremony. Valeria nodded weakly. The wedding continued, though with considerably fewer guests. Several had slipped away discreetly once they learned who I really was. During the reduced reception, Valeria approached me several times to apologize. Elena, I'm so sorry. If I had known, you would have treated me differently because of my power. Not out of respect, I replied gently. That is exactly why I kept my identity secret. The Spanish ambassador joined us. Elena, the president wants to confirm if you can attend the Interpol summit in Madrid next month. Of course, I answered. I will be presenting the Swiss bank case to the international community. Valeria looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. You're going to work with European presidents? Among other things, I confirmed. I also coordinate with the FBI, Scotland Yard, and Interpol on international cases. The months that followed were revealing for the entire family. Senator Whitaker's arrest became national news, with my photo on the front pages of every newspaper. Valeria had to process that her cousin was actually one of the most important officials in the country. Her marriage survived, though Sebastian faced months of questioning about his father's activities. The family business was completely restructured under federal supervision. A year later, Valeria invited me to dinner at an elegant restaurant. This time, not as a waitress. Elena, she said as we toasted with French wine. Can you forgive me for how I treated you? I already forgave you, cousin, I replied. But I hope you have learned something about judging people by appearances. Now, when the family gathers, Valeria introduces me as my cousin, the chief prosecutor. She no longer asks me to serve the drinks, although sometimes I do it out of nostalgia. That wedding, which began with my humiliation, ended up being the day my family finally knew me for who I truly am. And although the cake was never cut due to the circumstances, it was one of the sweetest days of my career. Sometimes the best revenge is not the one you plan, but simply being who you really are. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next story.